That is really great information. So if you don't mind, I want to jump right into the juicy part. All right. So some of these questions were submitted by residents. They did have to prove their residency by providing a street address. So we get to the voters. And then a lot of them I made up myself, handwritten just for you. And so let's get started. So Tammi.
Yes, sir.
What are some of your priorities if you are elected to mayor of Adamsville?
Number one priority is to get a full city audit. As I expressed before, everyone was asking those questions. I would get a full audit, financial audit to see where we are financially. And the other priority, I would say that is top of my list, is to restore the benefits back to our first responders, where their benefits were stripped from them. A couple years back, the personnel board was not included in the benefits being taken away, or rather kind of just minimized. They were minimized, but it really didn't benefit our first responders in Adamsville who put their life on the line every day.
Right.
So that's my top two priorities. And once we get there and just kind of right those wrongs, we can move further after to see where we're at financially after a full audit.
So not to dive too deep into that, the first responder situation, was there any public reasoning or statement of budget cut associated with those reduction in benefits?
See, the thing is, when you ask a question like that, I would say, well,
to the best of your knowledge.
Thank you. So the city would say, you come to council meetings, you would know. But, on the flip side, city officials who are elected and paid out tax dollars, I personally believe that some of these things we should be alerted. We should have maybe a full mailer sent out, a newsletter, something, a better way to inform us all. We have even elderly people who are just not on social media.
Right.
And so it will be difficult for them as well to not get that information if they had to come out and address their concerns about something, or even address their concerns or give their input, rather.
Right.
But I would say the only people who would have a say-so in the benefits of our first responders being minimized would be the personnel board. So last time I checked, when I asked this information, which took about 2 weeks for me to even get that information from the city of Adamsville, I asked who was on the personnel board, was my request, and how long was their tenure, and when were they elected. So there was a name that came up. It was Mr. Philip Barnes, a lady named Karen Cole, and John Cameron. Mm-hmm. John Cameron, if you remember, was our Public Works Department, like the director there. And I sent a message or letter to Miss Karen Cole. I didn't know her, but I found her on Facebook and sent her a message. I never received a response back. And then who I did speak with was Mr. Philip Barnes, who was on the personnel board. And Mr. Philip Barnes said that he was never, ever contacted when he didn't even know about the fact that the first responders' benefits were stripped.
Wow.
And he was really heartbroken by that. And I expressed to him that, well, what I do know, what I researched, was that the personnel board only received up to $200 in a year, which meant if you calculate that means they will only have 4 meetings. And they had only 4 meetings, and they will pay up to $200 a year. So that means they will have to have 4 meetings and be paid $50 for every meeting.
Right.
Well, they never had a meeting. And he said that time I spoke with him, he said he was on the personnel board for about 2 to 3 years at that time, or 2 to 3 years. And he was never contacted about the benefits. So,
right.
To
be fair, To be fair for our viewers, I would like to instate a new rule. Let's keep responses down to 3 to 4 minutes if we can, because I want to be respectful.
Yes.
I want to be respectful
Yes,
of everybody else's time who might, we want to get to everybody's question fairly. So moving right along, I did some digging and poking around, and I realized that your campaign slogan was Adamsville first. Now, I have a question. Is this like a pivot off of the Trump bandwagon, America first, or do you actually have some ideas or some goals that you want to reach that would be defined as putting Adamsville first?
Well, when I heard the president actually use the term America first, I thought it was about putting America back to its bringing it back to its rightful place as far as the economy, bringing our jobs back. Many of our jobs were leaving, or companies were leaving and going across seas. And so I thought of it as something a great slogan that he used, but when I say by putting Adamsville first, it's more like when human waste was brought into our community, I would love to have been contacted as well as anyone else. And so
you're referring to the poop train, the infamous poop train, right?
That is the infamous poop train. And I believe that Adamsville citizens should have been contacted, should have been informed, and any decisions we make moving further as far as transparency, Adamsville will always be first. And any decision that is made, we will always put the citizens first, not our personal agendas, not our personal families or their businesses, but right. Adamsville will always be first. We will make decisions based off the taxpayers' lives and the taxpayers in Adamsville.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds like you really have a plan that is all inclusive, including not leaving anybody behind. So moving right along. So give me a situation or a challenge that you have personally went through in which you overcame but needed to use prior experiences, leadership capabilities, a time when you was able to really shine as a leader of our community.
Well, when I received, let's go back to poop train. So that was a big monumental thing in this community where I live, where I understood what the environment and our sense of the value of life, and how the Black Warrior River was our source, was our water source, the Locust Fork. I realized that we had a great ecosystem here. Mm-hmm. And so when the town of West Jefferson, as well as the city of Graysville, informed me and our community on the Adamsville information page about this situation, the toxic, I call it toxic, the waste that was coming into the Adamsville.
Yes, human waste is in fact toxic.
Well, thank you for that, because some people are trying to minimize it as if it's something minuscule, and it's not. No. So that's how I see it personally. But my leadership skills and my research skills came from going to school as a paralegal. I learned to just do my research, and that's how I became informed about Alabama Department of Management, how the permit was improved. It was this thing called this leach aids I didn't know anything about, but I was wondering how effective was the landfill in securing, I guess it's the water, the leach aid that goes into the Locust Fork, where
those cars were being put on trucks and hauled via local roads up to the landfill. And so the spills were occurring on the way from the rail spur to the landfill. There shouldn't be any liquid spills from dry biosolids. And secondarily, even if there were liquids in there, these rail cars were supposed to be completely lined so no spills could take place. So obviously,
where they were not tested it. And so I knew to understand that there was a Black Warrior River keeper, and just contacted him and just realized that being a leader and getting everyone on the same playing field and forcing ADEM to have a public hearing, and they did come. They
bring things to light.
Exactly, and get a better understanding. We didn't want the permit approved because they were, Big Sky Environmental were looking to get this permit approved. And I just rallied the communities together and try to figure out a way we can get this stopped. We had contacted our county commissioners, our legislators.
Right, I actually remember you holding a town hall at the House of Prayer by the old Adamsville Elementary School, and you had brought the Secretary of State was there for the state of Alabama. I was there, and a few other who I would consider heavy hitters in our community and in our state, and we was able to get to the bottom of a lot of the answers that I know I had as a resident. And so I want to keep this moving right along. Oh, go ahead.
Yes. Well, that's part of that was a huge challenge in making sure these people showed up to Adamsville to know why did we allow this, and people needed to be informed. And that was the first time you and I met. So thank you for coming out that night.
Yes. All right. So moving right along. When, not if, but when you are elected to the mayoral position of our city, what will be your first official action?
As I stated, I would do an audit. I think that will be fair just to see financially where we're at,
and with 100% transparency.
Most definitely, I believe once the audit is done, the entire community will have access. Any tax-paying citizen in Adamsville will have access to that audit, so you know exactly where your tax dollars were spent, how it was spent, and exactly where we are financially. And we will create a website, an actual functioning website, where it's not a free website, because right now we're using some free website.
WordPress.
I just believe if we have $2.5 million in the general fund at this moment, and city officials said that we have $2.5 million in the account, I think we can spend some money to get a working, functionable website, such as, like I told everyone, go to Hoover City's website and see their functioning website. I mean, they put their agendas, their council agendas, the council minutes. You don't have to ask for anything. It's there at your fingertips. We will have an open checkbook. That's the first thing we will do, is make sure that the website is up and functioning, so that any information coming in and going out, everyone has access to that.
I love that idea. And I think it's really refreshing to see somebody who's not afraid or ashamed to let these things come to light. As you can see in this room by itself, we have what I consider stakeholders. These are people who are essential workers to our community. And for the simple fact that my good friend Brittany McGee's at work right now, joining us from Mosley Mart. And I believe that people who put the time into the community, who actually care about the community, they do have a right to see these things. And so,
yeah, we call them investors. These people have invested in this community all their life, and they have the right to be involved in the everyday process, everyday decisions of the city that they are invested in. It's like a huge business. These people are our city tax dollars, and the taxpayers are fully invested, and they want to see a return.
Right. We're going to shift the conversation a little bit. I like to keep a nice steady flow going. So let's look into your past. I'm seeing that you are possibly the founder of an organization known as Adamsville Forward.
Adamsville Forward Association. That is correct.
Tell me about that organization and your role in establishing it, and some of the functions that it carries out.
Well, I am the president of Adamsville Forward. The name came about in really moving our city forward, and really partnering with our connecting cities, especially I use the term sister city. Graysville is our sister city.
Yes.
They're like our twin sister. And so in order to move forward in the city and in Adamsville, you have to build relationships. The Lord told me that relationships was the key word that he imparted in my spirit, and I knew relationships would help our community. Mm-hmm. And so building partnerships with Graysville, Dora, Somerton, Town of Mulga, even Brookside, and Town of West Jefferson. I knew that in order to push our city forward, we was going to have to build relationships and have everyone to the table and try to work together as a youth. So moving forward, looking forward to economic growth, that's the only way it's going to be done. And really just figuring out how we all can work together.
Right. So if you're just now joining us, we're having a Q&A here with mayoral candidate Tammi Taylor. We do ask that you put your mics on mute. And if you don't want to be visually a participant, we welcome you to turn off your camera as well, just so that we get the vital information needed from our candidate and we get a chance to really get to know her. So do you mind, Tammi, telling us about your childhood, some of the struggles and great times that you have or have not experienced?
Yeah, so as my story was also told in Al.com, shout out to Roy S. Johnson at Al.com. I met Roy actually at an event for the Fender Alumni Association fundraiser, and he was one of the judges, as I was. And as we got to talking, he wanted to interview me. I told him my story, and I'll tell it again. It's my testimony.
Right.
And so I am the oldest of my mother's 5 children. My mother had children out of wedlock, and she never was married. Sometimes I have to make sure I'm very clear that it's like telling my mother's testimony, but I was raised by a mother during the crack epidemic where my mother was a heroin addict. I'm a 1980s, I'm an 80s baby. So if you're aware of that era, 1980s is when the crack epidemic hit our nation. And I am born at that time. And so my mother definitely was, our lives was impacted by that because my mother was a heroin addict. And so with that being said, it allowed me to be a leader at home because my younger sister had to depend on me. And
I'm sorry, Tammi. We're getting some interference. I will just one more time politely ask that everybody make sure that their mics are on mute so we get crystal clear conversation from our candidate. Thanks. Sorry about that, Tammi.
It's okay. I was saying that I didn't have my father in my life. He was also part of that drug epidemic where he was an actual drug dealer and sold drugs. But I didn't know that at the time of being a young child up until I became a teenager. I decided to write my dad in prison and research his history and found out that he was charged with being a drug kingpin. And so I just recently met my dad. So, I think the world of him. He's not in that life anymore. He's a stand-up guy, full of wisdom. And I love my mom and my dad. But it was a very tumultuous upbringing, and it crafted me to who I am today. A great mom. We didn't go to church when I was little, but when the state handed us over to my grandmother, we were in the Catholic Church. And so
grandmothers are good for getting us in church. I know that much. I know my grandmother was.
And this is when I first got to know who Jesus was. But as time, progressed, I had a child at 19 years old, also out of wedlock. And through that process, the Lord's been working on me ever since. I rededicated my life back to the Lord when I met my husband here in Alabama back in 2008.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to keep it right along moving. I'm sorry. I have to pull the questions up again. All right. Okay. Let's kind of dive into some policy, maybe not policy that you can directly affect, but just to get kind of an idea of where you stand on issues that I consider to be quite important, such as social programs. These are programs, welfare programs that are designed in order to bring people who are in poverty, not only within our city, but surrounding areas, out of that poverty state. How do you feel about these types of programs? And do you foresee you trying to start any type of initiative involving welfare, economic welfare?
Most definitely, I look into ways to bring in resources to our community to help families in need, even our elderly, even our veterans. Currently, I've brought in the American Legion, where I knew that in order to begin to take care of our community, meaning Graysville, Adamsville, town of West Jefferson, we had to bring in an organization such as American Legion, where I sit as president of the auxiliary, and my husband is vice commander, and our location is in Graysville. Mm-hmm. And those resources, I realized that in order to help our community, we first had to look at our veterans who served this country, toiled for us. And so I knew that would help. Other resources I know that is important for this community is first to have a community center, someplace where right now we're looking at the COVID situation where some kids had to have school at home. Where we don't have a community center for the youth, right? And so what about the kids who don't have computers at home? A youth center would have been perfect for those kids to kind of separate and still do their homework and have internet and access to continue to receive their education while being at home. And so I look at it where, as mayor, you actually research, hire the effective people who can come in, the overqualified folks that come in and help you assist with bringing in those programs and hiring individuals who can assist in building up programs and also working to bring in those resources. I think there's so many resources that can help strengthen our community. And the best part about being a mayor is you actually connecting and building relationships with those organizations, bringing them into your community. There's so many. Right now, I've been on the phone with the CEO of YMCA. And so just talking about the possibilities of bringing in the Y. I think it can work. They're not in the business of building. I learned something awesome about the YMCA. So they're not in the business of putting money into your community and building up.
But they'll take what's already there.
Exactly. And it's through partnerships, and it's also with the community's input, community coming together, like Graysville, Dora, Summerton, all these different cities can come together and we can figure it out on how to build a YMCA, utilizing our finances, our resources. But YMCA, they can bring the resource to your community if you had a community center for the youth.
Okay.
And for the elderly.
Okay, so that brings me to another kind of controversial topic, I guess. I know many of us are familiar with the intersection at Main Street, and help me out here, Tammy.
Rex Lane and Main Street, right?
Right. So the property there was recently, as I understand it, I could be wrong, was recently acquired by the city with a unveilment plan to build like I really don't understand what kind of complex. To me, it looks like maybe like a policing complex, a jail complex. I'm not quite sure what the complex itself it was supposed to be, but would it not stand to reason, if we already have these things and we do not have an increasing crime rate, would it not stand to reason to maybe use that space for the community center?
Well, that's part of my platform. Now that you bring it up, Rex Lane and Main Street is our historic business district.
Right.
It's the heartbeat of Adamsville, and just like the downtown area where the train depot was once built, where Adamsville resurrected was the train depot. So then you have the business district. Well, when the city purchased that property, we didn't know that what the initial plan was, or that they even purchased it. Again, they keep saying that, well, you have to come to the council meetings to know it. But I think that it would have been fair to kind of give us all a kite. Did you get a kite?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I didn't either. And so this is where the problem lies with me, is that if we're building a complex for a larger jail, an evidence department, evidence room.
Okay, because I'm calling it the criminal complex. I'm just going to put it out there. But go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so what's funny is I wanted to know, why do we need a larger jail? But I never really received any statistics from when I requested it at another one of our town halls that we had on crime and the drug opioid addiction, which is another town hall we brought. Well, I was trying to get statistics on the crime rate and looking at how many child sex offenders were moving into our community, as well as it was our officers was not saying involved, but they had ran in on like a child pornography ring sting. And I was trying to figure out, well, how is the crime in our community? But the statistics had to come from Adamsville when Jefferson County was on our panel, and they also brought the statistics from Jefferson County saying that, our drug opioid addiction problem, there was a huge problem in that. And so, families were being broken up, and I couldn't get those statistics. But I'm wondering if those statistics are high or at a high rate, maybe that's why they wanted to build a bigger
right.
jail.
But just some kind of solid information, some kind of reasoning, transparency. Transparency is what they should have done.
But when we are not informed properly, then it's just like, what do we have to go off when you're requesting the information, and you're just the police chief said he didn't have to give me the information. He didn't want to release the information. Because he didn't want to come to the panel, because he didn't want to get in the middle of what Pam, I guess the Mayor Palmer and I guess he knew that there was a lawsuit involved, and he didn't want to get in the middle of it. But, I had to inform him. I was a concerned taxpaying citizen, and the information was vital for the town hall. He still refused. Another thing is the business district. To build a municipal complex the way they're trying to build here, they're going to have to remove some of the business that is there. So what do we have there right now as we speak? We have the
little dealership.
We have Mr. Holland's dealership, and then we have Kemp's Barbershop. So I'm wondering, if we're going to move a new jail there, I was being chastised. I remember when I brought up the discussion to get people to understand that if a new complex is being built, where would our businesses go? Right. Everyone knows them to be on Ranks Lane. And so I think it's important to...
Is Young's Hardware still there?
No, it isn't there.
Oh. See, we really need to bring small businesses in. We need to create, and this is just my personal opinion, we need to create opportunities for some of these young people with really great ideas, sustainable ideas, try to make it easier for them to get that brick and mortar, because I'm sure that's something that they've dreamed of their entire life, to have that brick and mortar.
This is why educating our youth and rallying behind them, giving them a youth center, something that they can come and create. I mean, if we're not really pouring into our youth, who is the true future of this city, then you just might as well kiss the city goodbye, because old people die. We all have an expiration date, but then our children live on, and they can live on to do greater things. But you first have to pour value into them. You have to let them know that they matter, and that they can grow and they can build their own businesses here, because that's the ones who's going to continue the process. It's like carrying on tradition, right? Because there's so many families here that their descendants are still living. They still are here in this community. And I believe that we have to start with our youth. They do not have a building, but we sitting here with empty buildings on Rex Lane and Main Street. They're empty. The city owns it, but I'm saying, why can't we at least fix it up, revitalize it,
or lease it to a younger business owner? Even like, I see so much potential and so many bright minds that are just discouraged. And as a millennial, coming from a millennial's perspective, you know, everybody says that the millennials were the most spoiled, this, that, and the other. I don't believe that to be so. We were given a world where everything was at our fingertips already. That's how we were raised. I don't think that's spoiling. That's just an upgrade in lifestyles. But for those who have held on to power for decades and more, for those who have done nothing but lined their own pockets, made businesses in their backyards, for those who have, you know, who live in a mansion while looking down on those who don't have anywhere to live at all. And I think that there needs to be a serious change in leadership techniques. Because
let me be clear. I believe that it's okay to be rich. You know, I aspire everyone out there to take advantage of capitalism here in America. I believe that if you start a company, and no matter how much your company make, always remain humble in it. But I don't have a problem with the rich person. What I do have a problem is that you know that there is a hurting community that's struggling, but yet you have the means to change the whole entire paradigm in this community just with resources and funding.
Right.
But if you're sitting in an area where you are the most wealthiest person in this community, sit on our board, our economic development board, and as the mayor pro tem of the council, and have properties that are looking kind of dilapidated, or own properties that look like something out of a fifth or fourth world country, I think everyone needs to be paying attention to that, because
wake up, Adamsville.
We have leaders within our community who sit on our council who owns property here and do not even take care of their own property. But these are the ones who's governing our community, you know. And so I personally see it as, you know, it's good to come from nothing. I know I came from, it's like a rags. I'm not rich yet. I'm rich because my father is rich. But to come from nothing, I know what it takes to help a community thrive. I know what it takes to give hope and life, and to bring life, pump life back into your community, to these kids.
Not only that, but to bridge the differences, to be able to find a common ground when you see two opposing sides, the ability to no matter what have the end game of coming to a solution that is both sides giving in a little, both sides putting out a little. I think these are going to be the things necessary for a city to be resilient, to be prepared for disaster. God forbid it occur. It's basically to bridge the gap.
Brittany's called bridging the gap, exactly.
Because there is a huge gap between, I see it in generations. I see it in races, political ideologies. And this is not a sustainable way for a nation to thrive. And it starts on the local level. I'm going to keep right on moving. There's a couple of questions I want to ask. I don't expect you to necessarily know the answer to these questions, but be more just to be open to the possibilities and the information available, and the scientific knowledge that has been crystal clear since 1974. And what I'm talking about right now is what a lot of millennials are calling the climate crisis. A list of 15,000 scientists came together recently, actually, I believe 2 years ago, and basically agreed on saying that we have 12 years. Now, this is 2 years ago. We had 12 years to negate a catastrophe from happening, in the sense of just Adamsville alone would see an increase in tornadoes, not only the severity of tornadoes, but the frequency as well as flooding. And so, are you aware of these potential issues? And do you plan on investing in the city's capability to address such disasters?
You hit the nail on the head when we talk about tornadoes and flooding, because we do Adamsville as well as many other cities. That seems to be a sort of a disaster kind of, which is why the city had built a tornado shelter for families who don't have covering and shelter. But
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so it's right next to Spring Street Park, and for people who need to be in a safe place, it basically was built with a grant, which I think most communities need that to keep families safe who don't have a basement to go to. I think it's the most wise way to protect your family. But again, I'm not a scientist, right? But what I do know is that it's important to hire adequate and the most knowledgeable
objective people.
I agree, because as you know, I don't know it all. I sometimes believe sometimes my kids are much smarter than me. They know how to do the research to get to the answer because we showed them how to think. And I believe that being a leader, sometimes you have to admit, well, you know what, that's just not my forte. And you can't pretend like you know everything. But then again, because you're in leadership, you cannot even put yourself in a position to make all the decisions, knowing that there's people much more qualified in a position to work those areas. But I know based off of I watched some of your posts. Do you have any ideas? This is the thing. So as mayor for a leadership in the city, you know, there's committees, there's things that the community
there's a distinct path. So it's not so much of do I have individual plans for this, but what I do know is that globally, worldwide, humanity must go from what we're used to, which is considered a linear. Oh, I'm good. Where's my shirt? Nobody. I am in Homewood. I want my shirt. I want my shirt, Tammy. I want a small because I'm a small man. But just to go back to what I was saying, we need to go from a linear economy, which extracts resources, refines them into products, sells them, uses them, and then disposes of them. We need to come up with a more circular approach, which would mean extracting resources, creating a product, but designing that product for reuse after its initial use. So, for instance, I talked about a paper cup. It's a foolish example, but just to give you an idea, if I design this paper cup to be more easily recycled after its use, then so what you want to do is for leaders to search for that economic growth, but make sure that the growth that they're bringing into their communities has like some sustainability policies, and they're watching their footprint on the environment, because we.
I like that. To be honest with you, I love that idea. I think it's a brilliant way to get the community involved, Justin, just as you stated, where people have a heart and really an area that they're very passionate about. And so to be passionate about a certain situation, like you just explained, there's some areas that I'm just not that passionate in those areas, but that's what the committees and the boards are there for. So where the community can serve in areas that they're much more knowledgeable in.
Right.
And then we depend, like the city depend on city tax-paying citizens to come on the board, that they are well informed of situations that maybe the mayor pro tem won't know, or even the councilman won't understand. But I think it's best to put people on boards and people on committees who gets it. And that is the force and the drive to keep everyone involved. Just like Brittany explained, bridging the gap and making sure everybody has, as a collective, is coming together, bringing input, putting their input, and even having an open have an open mind in a sense.
Like an open forum discussion.
I agree.
All right, we're gonna wrap this up. We're already about 20 minutes over the projected time. So I'm gonna find 3 of the most important questions that I see on this list. And then we'll give about 5 minutes if anybody wants to ask their own questions. All right, I already asked that. Okay, so it's said in a lot of like a political science. You know, I'm a college boy. I went political science is my thing. It's said that change starts with policy. That being said, let's imagine for a moment that that's truth. Will you be able to negotiate if we have a brand new Taylor administration, but the same old council? Will you be able to effectively negotiate ordinances and pass budgets with this older, regime, we'll call it, for lack of better terms? Will you be able to bridge that gap?
I can work with anyone. If I can work with you, you have been my most hardest critic.
But it's because I care.
It was like a time when I just wanted to be like, but you made me better. You made me better because I know it was just some things we could not agree upon, but we found where we can find common ground and build off of that. So if I can work with Jay Cosby, I think I can work with anybody.
You have truly proven a point right there, ma'am. Touche. All right, moving.
You are my hardest critic.
I am.
But I can work with anybody. I think that for the sake of this community, I'm gonna use this as an example. So I went to this economic development kind of 2-day event conference where I brought with me a minor high school student. She came with me. I got her a ticket, and we were invited by our lieutenant governor and our Congressman Palmer. So shout out to our representation within our
Not
state.
To be confused with the current Mayor Palmer.
Oh no, Congressman Gary Palmer. Thank you for allowing us to come sit in this, getting us a ticket and inviting us in. But I brought a minor high school student, and the reason why I bring this up is because there was a panel, and you had Congressman Palmer on the panel, and you had Senator Doug Jones on the panel. So you have two people. You have 2 people that sit on separate sides of the aisle, but the reason why they were on the panel because we knew that one person had their views, and then this one had their views. But the real question was, how would they come together for the sake of the Alabama people? How do they work well together in D.C. On bills, on laws? And so, there was some questions that Doug Jones struggled in, but they were able to realize that.
I'm sorry, you was talking about Roy Moore. No, I'm just playing. Go ahead.
They were able to realize that they had to come together at some times to do what's best for the sake of Alabamians as a whole, not their personal parties or personal agenda. And to me, that was one of the best panels. My number one best panel was like the top 5 companies in Alabama, which also supports Taylor for mayor, by the way. The top 5 Alabama companies.
Okay, I'm going to end on this one, and it's going to be an unpredicted one. Probably some people might consider it a sandbag, but we'll be fair. Are you willing?
Oh, no.
Are you willing to state? Let me word this fairly. Are you willing to disclose the information, if any, of any entities donating, we'll say, above $500 to your campaign? Are there any organizations or entities that are supporting you $500 or more in your campaign currently?
Yes. So I don't know them all top, but I do know a few.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm willing to tell you that Mike Rich of Rich's Auto, one of our businesses here in Adamsville, is supporting us 100%. He's poured a couple thousand into
you
our
don't have to go into details. What the question's really trying to see who's backing you. So what are the interest groups that are backing you?
Okay. So we have over 500. We have the Black Warrior. Now I don't want to say the company, but our river keeper, but it's separate. It's not have nothing to do with the Black Warrior River Keeper, but he saw how tenacious we were in that concept, but he's a great supporter of us.
Environmentalist, I'm assuming.
But only because of how he saw how effective we were in stopping food train, and I believe that's why he was on board. We have I can't remember off top. But actually, that all is all public. If you go to the probate, Jefferson County probate, you can see the list of everyone we listed. I mean,
I was actually fishing for that very answer. I just wanted to see if you knew.
Supporters that support Taylor for mayor. You can get that list. It's public, and we have to report every Monday. So that list is very public.
All right. Well, Tammi Taylor, you have retained my endorsement. You earned it long ago. And I cannot wait to see you. I cannot wait to see Mayor Tammi Taylor in that parking spot that currently says Mayor Palmer.
Well, the parking spot is removed, so it's for handicap.
I didn't know that.
Now. Okay. But that's basically when you don't want let nobody know that you're in the office, so you don't want to park your car in the front. But that's a whole other story. But let's open it up for anyone with questions. I see we have some people here. Let's see if anybody before you leave, if you don't mind.
Okay, that's fine with me. So remember to take your mics off mute, and let's hear some questions. If you don't have any questions, it's cool. Okay, we're going to give Brittany just a second. Remember, she is an essential employee and she is working.
Okay. I got it off of mute. I didn't want to have any customers.
I love your shirt. I get to talk and say thank you for supporting me.
All right. It's no problem. Cindy brought it to me. I took your pizza.
Thank you.
Okay, but my question is, because we all know what my big thing in Adamsville is our youth and their future, because the youth is the future. I mean, period. We're all going to put arts and bus. Future is in the youth. Yes. And it's not in one generation of youth, it's in each generation to follow that generation.
I agree.
So,
well said.
With that, what do you think about us having some form, once we get, hopefully, fingers crossed, a community center for the kids? As that develops, what do you think about us having, like you said, you were talking about the YMCA, like Big Brother, Big Sister programs, things like that brought to Adamsville for a lot of the kids, because as you all also mentioned, the drug epidemic out here and the crime, a lot of these children are going through those things. So what are your thoughts on bringing some programs to help our youth?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because a gentleman came by to our campaign headquarters who is a longtime resident in Adamsville, and I was getting my purse to get I remember he had his card, and he has an organization called Caring Men and Caring Women, and it's a mentoring program. So see, Adamsville, you have people who live here in Adamsville who are very well equipped with bringing resources that is already here. We need to just utilize the people in Adamsville that's already here. And to have a Caring Men and Women Incorporate, and they call it INC, as a mentoring program, and his name is Mr. Long. So his website is caringmenandwomen.org. And I love his quote. It says, if we could change their mindset, we can change their behavior. If we can change their behavior, we can change their heart. And so I stand behind programs like this that we can just reach. Right now, we have so many organizations here in our own community, but yes, we will branch out outside of Adamsville and bring in those resources to assist us with our youth. I mean, we actually have programs right now, even within our high school and in our middle school, that we can continue to just bring it out into the Adamsville street. And so I'm a big proponent in that. I served as your parent liaison when I was when I was the president of the athletic booster. I served as your parent liaison at the Jefferson County Board of Education, and it was focused on getting the information to and from the Adamsville schools and bringing it back on back to the board. And so we need more parents involved in that aspect. I think sports is cool, but we do need more parents involved in that aspect and becoming parent liaison. So I'm with you, Brett. You know, the youth is 100% my thing, which is mainly why I started becoming very active within Adamsville, because of my 2-year tenure at Bottonville as president of the athletic booster and at Minor. I just saw like this disconnect and wanted to bridge the gap between our community and really focusing on, we needed leadership that was going to really focus and plug into our youth. And this is why I run. And guess what, Brittany, before you leave, the pizza came in the door right here. Thank you, Brittany.
I can't stand y'all. Y'all just sharing shirts and pizza.
But guess what? A piece came missing. She was eating it. So I'm coming back by to get my piece. Thank you, Brittany, for the Brittany Deluxe.
I ain't getting no
y'all
pizza.
Y'all welcome to come have pizza at headquarters. I'm willing to share with you all if you want some.
All right.
Any more questions? I'm sorry to go off a tangent, but
Right. Let the host do his job now. So if we have any more questions, feel free to unmute your mic and join us in the conversation with Miss Tammi Taylor. Just to reiterate, she is the mayoral candidate for Adamsville, who will have its election on August 25th, 2020. And the election, the polling location will be my home church, my church that I grew up going to Royal Rangers and participating in choir. Adamsville Church of God. I don't know if Pastor Roy Stewart is still head honcho there, but I know he instilled a lot of great things in me and is definitely a community leader.
In fact, I want to expound on that. We have one of the pastor's wives who pray over this. She walks the campaign headquarters and even this whole Main Street, praying every day. And she's the one I found out been leaving notes at campaign headquarters.
Is that what's her name?
Miss Kim. She goes to Adamsville Church of God. She's the one who's been praying over this community, and she decided to come and pray over this campaign and our campaign headquarters. And she's the one I've been posting about, leaving those beautiful, encouraging notes.
Well,
who pray every day.
I do want to call you out on I'm sure it's not fair to say that she is the one praying over our community, because I pray over our community. I know Brittany prays over our community.
I made a post on Adamsville Information, and I talked about these notes that were left here on the door. I was saying she was the one who was doing it, leaving the notes.
Okay, my bad. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you to everybody, including you, and everybody who's praying over our city, praying for this campaign, and even supporting me in this aspect. I want to thank all of our supporters, everyone who is coming inside to show us your heart, let us know that you want to build businesses here, giving us your ideas, and also being my hardest critic. I mean, we offer it all. We offer it all.
We do, and I hope for. Yeah, me and Tammi have thought. I think I've called and literally cussed her out in the middle of the night. I don't know if I went that far, but darn near close.
I think you did. And when you asked me, can you interview me? I was like, sure.
Right. I know you were expecting sandbags from left and right.
Well, I mean, with
I know you had the same interest.
Mhm.
You have two of the most like outspoken, non-filtered residents that are very involved in the community on here with Tammi. So I mean,
Right.
if we're backing her, what does that say?
Right. No
Yeah.
weapon formed
You know,
against
let me
us.
say one thing about Brittany. While Brittany's on here, Brittany and I, we were the same way, right? So there were some things that we didn't agree upon on certain things, but the bottom line is that we loved each other, but we had to make sure that we had to come together and ration our differences in a respectful way, because there is